Welcome to Daddies the podcast, and today we have the mind behind Lullaby the Fear podcast, Ashley Lanna. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad that we were finally able to connect. I know we've been trying to get you on for a little while, but chaotic scheduling. So I appreciate you taking the time. And also shout out to Chris, aka Captain Cook's Food, for kind of introducing us to your show, and he sung high praises about you when we had him on a few months back. So we are glad to have you here.
Yeah, I love Christopher, so thank you, Chris. I appreciate you.
You know, Chris, it's funny. He was like the first person that we interviewed from a different state that we actually like met in person.
Really?
So we had the interview, and then he was like, because he's in New York and we're in Delaware, so it's not like super far, but he was like, hey, I'm coming to Philly for a hot sauce fest. And we're like, well, Philly's only 45 minutes from us. So we ended up going and spending the day with him at that festival. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. He's a nice guy.
That's really cool, because I've known Chris for a long time, and I've never met him, so I'm really envious of you two. So, but that's what happens.
And Chris is really good at like Eric and I. Well, I don't want to speak for him, but at least I'm not like super good at like meeting people for the first time if I'm in a large group. But he was very good at like introducing us to people and like taking that awkwardness out of it.
Which he said, hey, come over here. Come on over here. Hey, everybody.
Yep.
Come here. This is Daddies the podcast.
And we're like, wow, this is great. This is, so I definitely couldn't do this without shouting him out. But welcome again. And so if you want to tell our listeners just kind of a little bit about yourself and about what your podcast is all about.
Yeah, sure. So I always get so weird when I talk about myself. So I'm Ashley Lanna. I am host, creator, producer, editor, and designer of Lullaby the Fear podcast, which is a true crime and dark history psychological podcast where I examine a case from the very beginning all the way till basically the final credits of it, because I want to know step by step the progression of each of the crimes. And as a person who's very analytical and likes to research, I wanted to make a podcast where the listener wouldn't have to go to other true crime podcasts just to get one story. So I wanted to create one where you get absolutely as much detail in the one case in the episode. And that's Lullaby the Fear podcast.
So I have to say, I've never really, like, my wife is the one that watches like the crime like on Netflix, and that's kind of always been her thing. But yours was the first that I've listened to that was kind of like about, you know, like an individual's story from start to finish. And we were listening to the Charles Manson episode today. We were actually on our way to get lunch, and like, so I got into, like, I've listened to a good bit of them, but like it was really the first step for me. But just how much in detail you go into everything, like you can clearly tell it's not like you're just going to Wikipedia, you know, and just like, well, and then just how do you feel about Wikipedia, you know? In school it was always like, don't use that.
Exactly.
Is that ever anything that you would consider using?
I don't use Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Because I try to get all my sources from the people directly involved and the actual trial transcripts if I can find them, which more often than not, they're accessible. As long as the case is like closed and like the person's convicted, the information's out there. And when you research for a long time, you kind of start to see what's fishy and what's not. And I'm one of those people where I go in hard. And then that's why I'm not one episode a week. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, but it depends on how ham I go because I'm not using Wikipedia.
I mean, that's fair. I feel like, it was always, well, because you can just go into Wikipedia and just put in your own whatever.
Well, anymore it's just ChatGPT instead.
Oh, well, right, yeah, and then just.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was don't use Wikipedia. You can't be sure that it's like appropriate, and feel like it was, but it's definitely like we've changed things on Wikipedia just to be jerks. So what was it? What did we say? Steve Buscemi was in. Is that what we did? We
Steve
changed the cast.
Buscemi was in like a Tarantino film to see how long it would stay there.
It was like an hour.
It was like an hour before they
Really?
took it down. Yeah.
Pretty quick.
It was very fast. But can you walk us through the research process? Like how does that look? Like the time frame, like how involved it is. What does that look like?
Moved. So when I first started, it was a little bit more chaotic because I would find specific moments and then kind of branch out from there. But as I've developed the podcast over the years, I find that I'll choose the person that psychologically I want to go into and analyze. And then I will actually find the timeline. So the date they were born and I try to find something every year until the time they were convicted or until the time they were executed, or basically there's no more information on them. So I try to stay as up to date as I can. And in doing it in the timeline format, it actually makes it a lot easier to understand like the criminal progression. Because when you leave out little things, like for example, there could be, I'll take Richard Ramirez, for example. He's had multiple head injuries, and head injuries, specifically to the frontal lobe, tend to be more dramatic for serial killers. So those are things that happened when he was, I'm not going to get the exact years right, but it was between the ages of almost like 3 and 15, he had many of them. And his personality did start to change. So a lot of podcasts, not all of them, I'm not blanketing all the podcasts, they'll say, yeah, he had a head injury when he was this age. And then they'll kind of go over it, but not in full detail. But it is those little moments that affect the future. And it's those moments that I don't want to ever forget. So that's where, for me, the timeline is very important. So I'll actually sit down with a piece of paper and pen and I'll write out everything. I'll study each year in progression. And then once I get to the end, I'll go back, I'll watch documentaries. I specifically try to go for interviews, lawyers involved. And it's actually a huge process for research alone because it takes me a day to record, give or take 1 or 2 days to edit, but it takes minimum 7 days to do research. It's a lot.
So it's over like a full week and that's
sure.
Like if everything is perfect, you know?
If everything is perfect, 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I really like cross-checking all my information.
Well, I mean, and it definitely shows. I feel like you do a really good job at kind of like engaging the listener and kind of making them want to like. I mean, I've listened to podcasts before, and it wasn't like a true crime or something, but where it's just like if you don't really grab the listener, I feel like super fast, then people are just going to go somewhere else. Right?
I listened to I think it still is maybe your most recent one, the Wade Wilson,
yes.
The Deadpool killer. And I sat in my car to finish it out. Like I didn't want to leave the car. I had I had to sit in there for another 5 minutes just to finish it off. So
and that was a long episode.
You had me.
That was a long one too.
Yeah, it was good. It was
good.
Similar to Greg. It's not my thing that I listen to in my free time, but my wife does. She loves them, and she listened to a couple of yours, and she said it was great. So
well, tell her thank you.
I think you're in her rotation now.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think too, like the I was listening to the Wade Wilson episode. I was picking up pizza, and so I was sitting there waiting for it to get done. And you do a good job at really like helping the listener kind of empathize with the victims and show just how fucked up a lot of these like I was listening to the Wade Wilson one. It's like this dude is a real piece of work.
Yeah.
But you do a really good job at making the listener kind of like feel that way, but not like overdoing it, if that makes sense. Like I feel like you like with a lot of these individuals, you don't really have to try to make them sound like a bad person or like they
are.
You just list
they just are right.
You just list the facts, and it's like, oh, they're a bad person. There's no you don't have to imply anything.
Do you ever though feel like when you're doing the episode, like, does that ever kind of like impact you mentally when you're digging so deep into these cases, or have you been able to kind of segment yourself out of the, out of the situation?
That's a good question. Um, I'm really good at almost like compartmentalizing and taking myself out of the case to see the entire picture of the case while still having empathy for the entire situation. That's why I'd make a fantastic lawyer. So there are things where they are hard. They're hard to read. Like, for example, I'm doing one on Ted Bundy. And if anybody who's listened to my show since day one knows that Ted Bundy is the one serial killer that I have a lot of trouble just talking about. And it's because I've watched so many interviews of his victims and the survivors, and seeing how strong they are and being able to come out and talk about what he did like years down the road. And like there's one woman who she was with Ted for years. She was his romantic partner for years, and she didn't want to believe that he did all that stuff. And you don't want to believe that the person you're with is a serial killer or is capable of doing that. And watching her finally come out within the last like 4 years and talk about her relationship with him, you see this almost like shame, but she shouldn't be ashamed because he was a master of manipulation, right? Like his victims weren't just people that he murdered. They were his family. They were other survivors, people that he worked with, people that he talked to and believed he was a good person. So watching them speak on how he seemed so normal and how them recalling memories with him where they were good memories, but knowing what he did was awful behind the scenes, it's heartbreaking watching that. And so, for example, with Ted Bundy, doing that case, I've had to put it off for a long time because you get upset because the survivors, and you can only imagine how the families are feeling. So a lot of the cases I'm able to step back and be okay. And some of them do hit me where I do have to take a couple days to take a break because it's hard.
Do you ever find that do you ever take care to, like, speaking about, like, if there are still victims alive or the families of the victims, do you have to, like, tiptoe around the, like, being still, like, respectful to them? How do you balance that out? I mean, it's not like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You're not doing anything for them, right? But I guess you're speaking about it. Have you ever had anybody upset about you speaking about any of this stuff?
I haven't. I've not. I know there are people who don't like true crime for the sake of thinking that true crime people romanticize or add salacious details just to like get a dollar, right? To me, that's not what it's about. I didn't start doing my podcast to see like, oh, let's see how entertaining I can be telling these stories. There is a portion of entertainment in it because I want people to be able to stay and hear the entire story. And that's why I approach it with a lot of empathy. If there was anybody I did cover and they weren't comfortable with me doing the case or talking about them, I would immediately take it, be like, there's no issue with that. I will go back. I will edit it out. I have no issue doing that because it is their story. The reason I do it is because I want people to learn what they can take away from the case. What if they notice these signs in other people, they can be more cautious. Not going into my personal background, but I've had a lot of family on my one side where they've had bad interactions with the law. And because of that, my parents did a very good job protecting me from that life. And those are things that when I started getting into true crime, I was almost watching it from a point of view of like, okay, well, how do I avoid these situations? And when I started watching true crime and listening to true crime, that's how I heard it in my head. Like, okay, this is what happened, but underneath everything, how could I have avoided it? And that's usually why people gravitate to true crime. It's because it's being able to listen to something horrific in a controlled environment and take away survival instincts from it. And that's why survivor stories are really important for me to tell. So it keeps them alive, and people understand that just because they're dead doesn't mean they should be forgotten.
I've heard you emphasize those things in your show.
Yeah.
Hey, take a break. This is terrible. This is gruesome stuff. Press pause, go, I think you said, go get a drink of water, go walk around, come back to this tomorrow if you have to, which is exactly what you're saying. That's super helpful for people that, like you said, want to listen to it in a controlled environment.
I think you even said if you don't want to come back, like that's okay too, which is like, that's great. That's great. I think being able to kind of show that is huge. I do want to talk about your actual like recording process, because I do all of our mixing and editing for our show, and so that always intrigues me. But the production quality is so high.
Thank you.
So what does it look like when you, like, I guess from like start to finish of the mixing process? I know you said it takes like 1 to 2 days. So how does that work for you?
So I record differently than a lot of podcasters that I've noticed. I actually just use my phone because I don't like being stuck in one spot. So I actually bought on Amazon like a phone booth that's like probably this big, and I stick my phone in it. And then I'm able to pull up my Word documents, or if I'm reading something off of paper, and have it right in front of me. And then afterwards I take it and then I clean the audio, and then I put it into, do you guys know what InShot is?
I do not.
It's just it's an app on your phone for iOS, and it's just for making like videos. And so I'm able to, I know this is such a strange process, but this
is great.
It's how I learned. And I tried going to like mic and computer, and I'll do that for like shows, but I like the idea of being able to like, I'm in the mood to record right now, so I'll sit down and I'll do it, right? So I tried to make it I can travel and do it. So once I get it into InShot, I'll put my audio in, I'll edit everything, give or take the dramatizations. Some of my episodes have dramatizations where I'll bring in people and I'll have them do a scene of something that happened in the case. And that is a lot of sound overlaying. So because I'm doing it in such a small app, I believe I can only have 5 sounds overlaying each other. So from an editing point of view, this is really entertaining. Everybody listening is like, I don't give a fuck. Can I swear?
No, this is so good.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so like I'll have to listen to that, make sure it's fine, export it out because it gets exported as a video. And then I have to go back in, delete my old track, export the audio, put it back in, and then keep editing. It's a process.
There's a way around it, yeah.
Yeah. And then once I'm finished, I save it as a full video, so like 45 minutes to an hour. I'll extract the audio out. I'll clean it one more time, and then I'll upload it to Spotify now it's Spotify for creators, but it used to be Anchor, but that's how I do it. Yeah.
What, so there's no like digital audio workstation on your laptop or anything? It's all, wow.
I know.
That's impressive.
I tried.
I'm shocked to hear that. It sounds so good.
I tried to do it at a computer, but maybe it's the undiagnosed ADHD. I don't know. But like sitting down in front of a stationary computer, it struggles, because especially when you're editing for like 10 hours, because like 10 minutes of audio isn't almost an hour to edit, right? So people listening are learning.
So editing is a pain in the ass. Like it's not.
The worst.
It's so, and so when. So a little backstory about Eric and I. We started this podcast in January, and we had no idea what the fuck we were doing. Like we kind of jumped into it. We didn't know like who to use, and we recorded everything on Podcastle, and it Podcastle had this cool feature where it would delay Eric's audio with mine by like a split second.
Did you call it a cool feature?
Yeah, it was great. And so I would spend like 50 hours editing like 45 minutes of audio. And there was one point where I was like, if we have to keep doing this, like I can't do this. Like this is going to like I can't mentally handle this. And it took us so long. I'm sorry, Eric. It took me so long to figure out how to to do the editing and which plugins played nicely with others. And it's a fucking process. And the fact that you were able to do that from your fucking smartphone is super impressive. And to have it come out sounding clean. Because I really, everyone listening, I can't reiterate how difficult editing is. It's a
awful.
pain.
Greg, it sounds like you're going to lead into your new sound editing.
Yeah, so I want to take a quick
Plug.
second. So this is a good time. Mixed by Daddies the podcast. Well, by the time this episode is out, it's a new service that we are providing for all of your editing needs. As much as I hate it, I really do like it, and I feel like I've gotten significantly better at it over the last year. And now that I kind of have the tools in place, I like helping other people. So,
you know what that would be like for me? That would be like, it's easier for me to go help a friend clean their house than it is for me to clean my own house. So I feel like if I were you, Greg, it would be easier for me to want to clean up somebody else's audio than it would be to clean up our show's audio.
But I think too, and Ashley, I don't know if this is, if this is true for you, but having to listen to your own voice is it's so like
awful.
I still haven't gotten I've gotten more comfortable with it just because but I still hate it.
Oh yeah.
I don't enjoy that. And with Eric and I, at least there's back and forth. So how does because it's pretty much just you, and you do have individuals that come in, but how does that work? So when you're recording, do you just all right, so I'm going to stop here and then pick back up, or how do you just go until you're done, or you're tired, or you need to take a break?
So because it's just me, for those of you who haven't listened to my podcast, I will explain the story where it sounds like I'm talking about a case as if I'm reading you a story, and then I'll go off book and I will talk as if I'm breaking the fourth wall and speaking to you. So when I am reading, there are times where there is the most simplest word and I cannot pronounce it to save my fucking life. And I record on my iPhone voice notes. That's what I use to record my voice. So if anybody has ever used that, it's a lot of start and stop and start and stop. But it allows me to actually, if I completely flub up a sentence, I can go back and re-record it. When that starts to happen, and I start to hear that I'm starting to get bored because now I'm not so much telling the story, I'm just trying to get the frickin' sentence out, I stop. Because it's really obvious to me. And then for new listeners, not so much, but old listeners will be able to hear your cadence change. So yeah, I get it. And I hate listening to my voice. It's different now because I've done it for so long.
It's ironic.
That's
what you do.
It's weird though. And no matter what, it doesn't get easier. And it's even I have YouTube, the YouTube app on our TV in the living room, and my daughter put on the Daddies the podcast channel, and it was playing on the fucking TV, and it's why am I hearing myself out in the living room?
Kids listening to our podcast.
The kids listening to the podcast, which is really what I don't want. At least not yet. But it hasn't gotten. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I could never be a vocalist. Also, I can't sing for shit. But I do have to ask, so how do you engage with your audience? Does their feedback kind of influence certain decisions or a direction that you take, or is everyone just kind of in for the ride, or do you get a lot of not constructive criticism, but is anyone
Interaction.
like interactions?
I'm very fortunate I don't want to jinx myself. I'm really fortunate to have a very positive community that I've built with Lullaby. And everyone has kind of realized that once they start listening, that it's kind of what you're going to get, because I've been doing it for 3 years now. And it's more or less, this is how I explain it to people. There's a difference between constructive criticism and opinion, where it's like, I don't like this, so that means a lot of people don't like it, you should change it. But that's something that really made me insecure when I first started podcasting, because I had like the imposter syndrome. Like, well, why would anybody want to listen to me? Why, I'm just this girl who wanted to start a podcast. But once I started having more confidence in myself, and when I started winning awards and realizing that I'm actually making an impact, that's when the insecurities in myself changed. And that's where, this is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, that's okay. If you love it, that's fantastic. As for constructive criticism, the one that I got, and you can hear in my earlier episodes, and the thing was, is I was trying to deal with it at the time, and it was backing audio volumes, right? And that's something that, when you're in the process of like, you're about to try and do something, and then someone's like, you should do it this way, but that's what you're trying to do. And then you kind of get frustrated. That,
Yep. Oh yeah.
that was a thing, because you can hear in some episodes, I'm trying different mics, and I ended up trying to record on the computer and ended up just going straight back to my phone. I'm like, this is just how it works. It's easy. It's great. And yeah, I've been really fortunate to have a really positive community. This is Lullaby. This is it. This is what you're going to get. If you don't like it, that's completely fine. Like, you're open to your opinion. I also am really adamant about people being safe and positive in the community. And I don't tolerate people who are negative for the sake of just hearing their own voices. So,
do you ever get like any of those like trolls that like come onto any of your like posts on Instagram, or and just like try to start shit? Or have you been? Yeah,
I haven't. I have not.
Good. They're everywhere. You are fortunate because they're very everywhere.
Fortunate. I mean, like, we got one. We were talking about shopping carts, and for whatever reason, people don't think that you should put your shopping cart back when you're done with it.
I think that is still, I still have to say, that's probably the minority, the loud minority.
And they're very fucking loud.
But they are loud. They're fucking dickheads about it too. And that just goes to show you that they have, what is that, main character syndrome?
Yeah.
Yep. And so we get, but Eric and I, like, when we post shit, it's obviously way different than what you're doing.
Our stuff is real dumb. And we get flamed on the regular.
Yeah, we kind of knew what we were getting into when we started this. But that's nice that you've been able to kind of avoid the trolls, and
I'm fully aware that they are out there. I don't invite them. Eventually, it would be weird to never not have one. I really don't like allowing negative into my space, because when I first started podcasting, every little thing made me insecure about what I was doing. And it was those little things that made me want to stop. And once I finally got over myself and was like, Ashley, you're not the main character, as you said, like, people are bored. It's not particularly you. Once I was able to get into that mindset, everything changed. Like, I don't know what Tony Robbins shit happened, but like, somebody clapped in my face and I changed.
I mean, but I think that's fair. Like, I went through that, and Eric had to kind of be that counter person for me, and he was like, you need to just take a step back and just like fucking breathe. Because
also, we've checked trolls before, and they I think they just expect to scream into the void.
Yep.
And try to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And then if you check them, I mean, obviously there's always exceptions, but we found that they just go away.
Half the time, so we had someone, and what did he say? He said, not everyone should have a podcast.
This is proof. This is proof
that
they'll let
not
anybody
everyone
do a podcast.
And I can't remember what we were talking about. And I said, and I think I said something along the lines of, like not everyone should be able to type a sentence or something because gave me some like grammatically fucked.
Oh yeah, you pointed out a misspelling.
I did.
Right. That's what it
and
was.
he blocked us and like, yo, like if you're going to be that person, I respond, and too, like, I don't think people sometimes understand, like, and I'm sure it's the same for you, like, if you're engaging with anyone on our social, like, it's us, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we have a team of people behind us backing us to do this. So like, if you leave a comment, negative or positive, we're going to be the ones to respond to you. But yeah, I feel like if you check them, they kind of go away. But there's nothing better than like, it does, as much as I say like check them, it does still get you a little bit, you know, as much as you don't want it to. There is a little part of me that gets irked every time someone posts something super negative. But on the flip side of that, when someone posts something really positive, then it kind of really outweighs that negativity.
Mhm.
We get more positivity than negativity, and it's great. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's the same for you, but whenever I get something, even like a nice little heart comment, you know, it's just nice.
It's
you know,
really
it makes
know
you
you're
nice.
feel good.
there.
It makes you
'Cause
feel good.
I know with me, I don't get many. I don't want to say I don't not get it because I'm sure there's people out there who have tried to say something negative and I've just not seen it or I've completely gotten rid of it. But I just, if people say something negative, it's a reflection of how they're internally feeling, not so much what you're doing. It could be like maybe they had a terrible day and you happen to be in their warpath, right? And this is something that I've able to learn actually just from studying serial killers and psychology.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that. I feel like you could dissect somebody having a bad day and just
Yeah.
and raging.
And it's now come to a point where it's pretty easy to be able to like sift those people out because, for example, my community that I've built with my podcast, they don't want to hear it either. So more often than not, they'll either check the person. I don't recommend any of my listeners to engage in any of the negativity if it happens,
Don't
because
feed the trolls.
that's the thing is like, if they're posting it to see it, they want a reaction. And it's almost like adding oil to fire. Like, let's just make this bigger, right? It's like I don't have time. I have way too much fucking research time to deal with this shit. So like I'm really happy that I haven't had to deal with it. Will it happen one day? Of course it will. I'm expecting it. Is it going to hurt? It's probably going to hurt. But at the same time, you're not going somewhere unless you have some negativity, right? So,
You know, and it's interesting. We were talking with an individual, and she said that she gets a lot of hate on Instagram, but more love on TikTok. I found for us, we get our asses chewed out on TikTok, but more love on Instagram.
Our TikTok algorithm is broken.
I don't know what the fuck happened to our TikTok algorithm, but it's not great. And so that's the least, like, I post the least amount of content on TikTok.
Greg, did I ever bring, while we're talking about people having bad fucking days, did I ever tell you about the story? I probably told you, but I don't know if I said it on the podcast. I was driving, right, and I'm pulling out of this parking lot, and I was pulling out, and it was a stop sign. They didn't have a stop sign on the cross. And I probably could have gone. I wasn't like playing with my phone or anything. I just said, let me just wait. There's an opening right behind it. So I don't go. Guy behind me gets right up on my ass, slams on his horn, starts waving his hands at me. And then I go and I flip him off. And I flip him the bird and I drive away. I thought that was kind of it until the red light right there. But I didn't think that there was anything more of that. I thought it was just, unfriendly interaction and, everybody goes about their day. This guy had some road rage in him.
no.
He gets up on me, screeches on his brakes right behind me. Biggest dude that has ever tried to fight me gets out of his car and I'm like, oh no. And I'm like locking the door.
Yup.
And he bangs on my window and he goes, what was that? What'd you say to me? And so I just like cracked the window and I go, you must be having a really bad day. And he said, you know what, I am. And he just gets back in his car and I said, thank God. Because
You're lucky he didn't fucking pull you out of the car or pull out a gun.
I cracked my window this much. I wasn't going to allow that to happen.
So Ashley, I don't know. I feel like gun laws are different in in Canada, but in Delaware, you just have to go. You can just go and buy one, and everyone has a gun here. So people pull guns out for way less, Eric. So you
Yeah,
are
yeah, I know. I don't mess with I don't mess with that anymore. That was a
road
long time
rage.
ago.
I mean, we hear all the time like so and so pulled out a gun and opened fire in Wilmington, and it's like over something like that.
I know.
That's so
So
scary.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Uh,
scary.
but yeah. So I have you found are you on TikTok?
I was I I don't know. I'm awful with social media. I try to stick to one. I stick to like Blue Sky and I stick to Instagram. I had Twitter for a while. I tried YouTube when I first started, but YouTube's kind of a cesspool for people who just want to be just want their voices heard for negative things. So I guess that's
Uh,
where my negativity was from YouTube. But what I did was I got rid of it.
Cut it
you know
out.
what?
Yeah.
I TikTok is so difficult, at least for me. Like it's my least favorite of the platforms. I love Instagram. I love we just got a Facebook. And I love that too. And I feel like we get negative a lot of negativity on like YouTube Shorts, and like people will. Most of it, like 85% is positive, but then the other, 15% is like,
It's so weird because it's the same internet across the board, right? We're all on the
yeah,
same internet, but different social media platforms just have different rules or different like guidelines or different moods. Like you get a different type of person on Tumblr than you get on Reddit, than you get on YouTube or TikTok. Like it's just they behave differently. Don't use emojis on Reddit. If you use emojis on Reddit, people will downvote you for the most part.
but it's fascinating because like if I'm on my phone, I'm not scrolling through YouTube Reels ever or YouTube Shorts. You know what I mean? But like I'm gonna go through Instagram and look at the Reels, or I'm gonna go through TikTok and look at the videos. So I'm wondering, or I don't know, do a lot of people use YouTube? Like, are they on an actual computer, or are they on their phone? Is it like a different like type of people that are looking at that?
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Let
No,
me
I
just
mean it's just like, or like I've noticed the individuals on Instagram that do try to start shit always have like 20 followers, 20,000 following.
Oh no, it's like the bot accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever though actually noticed like it was wild, and I don't know what happened, but we were like Eric and I were playing video games one night, and we got like 1,500 followers like out of nowhere on Instagram. Like it just happened, but all of them were fucking fake.
Yeah, the same formula of bots. It was
Oh,
like yeah,
And it fucked our algorithm up, because I would post something and it would get filtered to these like not real human individuals, and we're still paying for that in terms of like clearing out like has anything like that ever happened to you?
I as soon as an account looks fishy or it says anything, it's like go to my OnlyFans, it block. Like just block because
wait, are those not real?
what? No,
I thought they really liked me.
Yeah, right.
I
no
subscribed to
followers.
like
I thought they really liked me.
I subscribed to 60 OnlyFans accounts because of
Yeah.
that.
And
Jeez, sus.
we've deduced your problem.
Yeah, right.
Just joking.
Well, it is bad. Like I'll look to see who looked at our stories, and we get significantly less people looking at our stories versus like our actual posts. And then there's always like the hidden
Yeah,
ones, and it's like, yo, like these names are fucking wild. Like clearly this is a bot,
yeah.
but like we get like 2 or 3 of those on every post that we make. And we were talking to I think it was Brandon Eric, and he said that he gets like wild shit on his, and like it'll be like the same bot that comments on every post, like just the most like sexualized, like inappropriate comments on every fucking video. And I wonder like how that happens to an account. I don't.
I might be able to dip my toe in this one. I know I have my restrictions on where I have it where the people who can comment on my stuff have to follow me because then they have to be identified.
Oh, okay.
So if as soon as I see someone follow me and it's like, oh, and I know you guys got these ones, I'm a podcast promoter. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yep.
Blocked.
Yep, yeah.
Like, and it's because I think once Instagram starts to see that these are what you're blocking, it's, I don't know, they don't show them to your account maybe. This is just me guessing here. Because I know when I first started Instagram, I would like, here's a good example. You follow like a fitness influencer. Next thing you know, you have 40 bots following you that are all like hypersexualized, right? That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe Instagram's changed it or like you guys said, has something to do with the algorithm, but I don't know. It used to be like that for me.
I feel like too, like I get Instagram sometimes will tag like real people and it'll say like review follower, and it's like, wait, like I know this person. They're not spam. So I wonder what also kicks individuals into that, that category. It's gotten better for us.
Greg, you were spam. Instagram thought that you were spam. You were going through and liking so much because you wanted to have interaction.
I did. So
you were like,
I was trying to figure out how to engage with like people that we would talk to a musician. So I would go to that musician's page and I would fucking talk to everybody that was liking that individual's post or whatever. And then it said, you did too much. Try again in 24 hours.
You hit the interaction limit.
I did. And then, so when we were first starting out, like trying to get guests, like, and reaching out to people, and like even when I reached out to you, like a lot of people just weren't like, not even like that they weren't responding, but I don't even know if they were seeing like our message. But it was it took a while for us to start getting guests on the show, and we had to really kind of establish like who we were and what we were about. But it really took a while to get there, and Instagram was flagging us as spam. I do want to talk about though the
spam.
Oh yeah, it was brutal, and but we also were able to. My favorite story still, Eric, is we were interviewing a local comedian here from Delaware, and he was like, I wonder what William Hung from American Idol is doing. And he was William Hung was one of the first guests that we were able to get onto this show. And I don't know why I find that so fucking fascinating, but like, I think it was Cartoon Connect. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his posts, but he does a lot of stuff with like puppets and
animation.
And he's an animator. But when he responded, I think that was the first time I was like, hey, I think we actually like have a chance to talk to individuals. And our thing has always been kind of understanding the individual behind, like for him, it's Cartoon Connect, but who is Brandon? Like what is your why? What do you do? And I think that really resonated with a lot of individuals because we were talking to, who was it, Eric Pouillon from Scary Kids Scaring Kids. And he was like, I'm a musician, but that's not all that I am. I'm also a marketer, and I did, behind the scenes for this show. And a lot of people like to kind of talk about that. And I think listeners like that as well. So that was kind of like for us, like that kind of not breakthrough, but
it was actually, it's kind of like what you do, but instead of like, we just don't do that with serial killers, we do it with the people that we're talking to, but that's what you do. You like kind of go into the why, like what were the possible reasons and things like that. So that's, there's a correlation.
That's really good that you guys do that. You see people for who they are and not so much what their public image almost is, so to speak. Right.
And it's difficult sometimes to not like fanboy out, with like certain people. And we were talking to Dave from May, and that was one of the first interviews, and I was trying so hard to not, because like I grew up listening to that band.
Oh my God.
Well, and like, that was part of the reason why like I got into music was your band, but like trying to like, and not like say any of that. And as we've done more, it's gotten better. But yeah, I think people would like to just kind of talk about like who they are. And so that's been huge for us. I do want to talk about the Canadian Podcast Awards.
Yes.
Okay, so you won in 2023, correct?
Yes.
And that was for what?
Outstanding true crime series in Canada.
Okay.
That was a big one. That was a big one for
Yeah,
me.
no, that's huge. Yeah. So how does that look? Like, how are you, I guess, nominated for? Does someone have to submit your show? Like, how does that work?
So people have to nominate your show, and then basically the nominees that have the most votes get put into the categories, and then it goes from there. And I was really lucky to be nominated my first year ever having a podcast. I was nominated for Outstanding Debut of a Series, and that shook my world because when I saw that I was nominated, that was at a time where I was contemplating, am I good enough for this? Can I do this? And then to get an email saying, congratulations, you're nominated for Canadian Podcast Awards, I was like, what? And it was
That's
really
huge.
awesome. Yeah. I didn't win, but just being nominated was incredible. And then the following year, I was nominated for Outstanding, True Crime Series, and I won that. And I remember crying like a baby because when you have a true crime podcast, you're always worried that people are just going to think like, oh, well, everybody has a true crime podcast, right? And it's it was very validating for me knowing that what I was doing was making an impact. Because I do true crime with a different approach. Like, there are podcasts that do it like me. As for someone who does Lullaby, it was very validating for me. And then this year, to be nominated 5 times was awesome, because you can't be nominated. You can't win the same award twice. And it's really great. So I'm getting really excited and I forget what to say.
No. I mean, that's huge. And so we're in 2024. So you're up for 4?
5.
5
this year.
Wow. Year. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you win more than one in 1 year?
Oh yeah, you can win more than one. You just can't win the same award back to back.
Okay.
Okay.
So when does voting end?
Voting ended November 22nd.
Okay.
And the awards are in early December. You wait for the podcast committee to announce when it's going to go, and then you watch it live, and it's like, oh, that's just terrifying.
That's
soon.
Exciting. We voted, and we were pushing it out to trying to push it out to the masses as much as possible. But we did vote for you.
So Ashley, let me ask you this to go back to actually your podcast. I feel like this is a low-hanging fruit here. Of all the episodes you've done, do you have a favorite subject topic that you talked about, and also a favorite episode that you've done, like the process of actually doing like the research and recording? Do you have favorites for either of those?
Yes. Now, something that I always say is I don't have a favorite true crime case. I have cases that I find more psychologically interesting than other cases. As for favorites, I will only say like the dark history episodes. So if you go for a psychological case for a serial killer that I found really interesting, it would be the Richard Ramirez cases. It's because I did 2 parts, part 1 and part 2, because whenever somebody talks about the Night Stalker, they never talk about when he was a child, all his head injuries, all the things that happened to him. And when I did it, I'm like, well, everybody's done this case, but let me do everything that happened in this case. So going back and doing all of that, I really enjoyed. As for the dark history, and I will tell everybody this one, it's the Titanic episode. I am obsessed with the RMS Titanic and White Star Line. So doing that one, it was my huge nerd out. And if you listen to that one, I promise you will learn things that you did not know about the Titanic. Because everybody says, I know about the Titanic.
I'll tell you what, as someone who has never seen the movie The Titanic, I know very little about it. I think they stand on the front of the ship and they do this, right? And he holds her.
I don't know how you haven't seen The Titanic.
It's so long.
It is.
I don't have
two
the
VHS
patience.
tapes.
2 VHS
video
tapes.
tapes,
Holy
yeah.
shit.
Yeah. I mean, but when that movie came out, dude, it was game changing.
Yeah, I know. But my mom kind of sheltered me. She didn't let me watch
From the
things.
Titanic?
Well, there was titties in it.
I was gonna say,
but it
was it the drawing me like one of your French girl scene?
I think so. I wouldn't know for sure. She didn't let me watch it, and I keep listening to her. My mom said no.
But it was rated PG, so it was acceptable. I guess that parental.
It was tasteful. Boobs.
It was tasteful, yeah.
Art.
But like, I feel like that's
Yes.
So for those listening, how can they find your show? Where are you streaming?
You can listen on every available platform. I'm on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, Podbean. I'm on pretty much all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
But not YouTube.
But I'm not on YouTube.
That's fair.
So if someone is on YouTube, it's not me.
It's not the real. And so before we go, do you have any advice for someone who wants to start like a true crime podcast? Like, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to absolutely do it. I would say before you even record your first episode, think about why you want to do it. Why do you want to go into this form of like genre of podcasting? Because it's a terrain that is dark and a lot of people do it, and there are a lot of people who do it for the wrong reasons, and these are people's lives that you're talking about. So do it and be kind about it. I preach that all the time, like be nice to people. Like you don't know what someone's going through. So that's how I approach my episodes, and I feel like someone starting their own podcast for true crime specifically, approach it with be soft, be kind, be empathetic. If you're not empathetic and you're a borderline psychopath, don't do it. Just don't. Which means you probably don't know you're a psychopath, which means yikes. And find what makes you different. What's going to make you stand out? And go from there. And no matter what people say, remember, you can take your criticism, but in the end, it's you. You're the one who's putting in all the work. You're the one who is going, no one asked you to do a podcast. You went out of your way and decided to make something public. So do what you want to do. And I know it sounds so cheesy, but it's that simple, actually. That's my advice.
Well, I think that's huge. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ashley. Once again, Ashley Lanna, host and creator of Lullaby the Fear podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.